Hi everyone, Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in the Breslin Center here in East Lansing, Michigan. I'm kind of leaning into this one because we got the leaf blowers behind us blowing the popcorn everywhere. So if it looks like I'm right on top of my computer, if it looks like I'm yelling, it's because I am. Because I gotta drown out the snow blowers back here. Purdue loses 75-66 at Michigan State in a pivotal Big Ten championship race game for both of these teams. This is your goldenblack.com wrap video. If you hadn't figured that out by now, it is brought to you by our friends at Purdue Club Hotel. Thank you to them, as always, for their support. Still have not found the East Lansing, Michigan, or Lansing in general location, but we'll keep looking for that every time we come up here. So both of these teams, were among the favorites all season long in the Big Ten, both of whom had hit some kind of rocky moments here of late. And one of them was going to get right tonight, and one of them was going to continue to hit the rocks. And it turned out Michigan State was the one who got right, and Purdue was the one who continued to struggle. Purdue's now lost 3 games in a row. Not what this program is used to. Not only for the many, many years of all the success they've had, but more specifically of late when Purdue has been one of the elite teams in college basketball every year. It's not to say they're not a really good team. They just got to this point in the season where these really high-end games came one after the other, and stuff has not gone their way. And Michigan, it was a bizarre composition of things. Wisconsin, it was Wisconsin's red-hot offense coupled with Purdue's regressing defense, to a certain extent. Today it was the turnover thing that we've talked about before every game for like 5 years now. It's the thing that's always kind of hanging in the background that can rear its ugly head at any point in time, but also a symptom sometimes of larger issues. I think that I don't know if Purdue played with the necessary poise. It needed to in a game like this on the road, in such a high-stakes situation. It really was only 12 turnovers, which isn't the worst number in the world, but Michigan State scored off damn near every one of them. And job one against Michigan State, number one, generally is to keep them out of transition. That and rebounding are always critical against these guys, no matter what players are wearing those uniforms. The uniforms always do the same thing. And they want to run, they want to get in transition, and Purdue had to keep them out of transition, and Purdue did not do that. The 12 turnovers, again, not a huge number. It wasn't the volume, it was the impact. And I thought Purdue kind of lost its poise there a little bit, got sped up, and I think it was maybe coincidental, maybe not, that this stuff, in terms of offensive struggles, happens after Trey Kaufman-Ren picks up a second foul and has to come out of the game. Now, that said, Kaufman-Ren got his minutes, got his numbers. Matt Painter managed that very well in the first half. Number 3 was never came. He got away with one that very easily could have been number 3, but Purdue navigated that pretty well. But Purdue was up 7 in the first half. Purdue was playing well. Purdue had its legs under it. It was doing some positive things. Michigan State cuts it to 5. Trey Kaufman-Ren picks up his second foul on nobody's really sure what exactly happened. I thought it was Caleb first, but I'm sitting 500 yards away. Trey Kaufman-Ren himself thought it was Caleb first, who did whatever it was that happened there. Nevertheless, Trey Kaufman-Ren goes out with his second foul, briefly albeit, and that's when things kind of got destabilized a little bit. Whether that's coincidence, maybe it was, but the turnovers really started after that. And Michigan State had an 8-0 run there toward the end of the first half, and perhaps had Kaufman-Ren stayed in the game, that continuity had continued to grow offensively. Maybe Purdue would have had that destination player on offense. I thought Braden Smith maybe got a little too deep a couple times, maybe was trying to do a little too much, which, we've seen him shoot Purdue out of those situations before. Iowa being the prime example. Kaufman-Ren goes out, Braden Smith takes the whole game on his shoulders, shoots Purdue right back into the game or right back ahead, whatever the circumstances were. I thought Michigan, there were some similar situations where Smith took on a lot when Trey Kaufman-Ren left the game. And again, maybe it was coincidence, maybe it wasn't, but that was the delineation point between Purdue playing pretty well, Purdue having this game relatively under control. I don't think when Purdue was up 7, anybody was sitting here thinking Purdue was going to roll to a win here. But things really started to go sideways after that second foul by Kaufman-Ren. Again, maybe complete coincidence. I don't know, but it just struck me in the moment as something that might have been significant. There's no questioning that was the point in time when, Michigan State really kind of took control of this game. Purdue did not lead at half. I was about to say Purdue still led at half. I'm thinking of the Wisconsin game, I guess. But Purdue needs Trey Kaufman-Ren on the floor. I can't say that enough. I'm going to stop saying it because it just should be assumed at this point. What we're going to do is we're going to get a little iMovie graphic. And right next to the goldenblack.com logo in the bottom corner of this thing that we don't have tonight because I had to get a new computer this morning. Thank you to superhero Alan Karpik for taking care of that for me after a really, really bizarre situation last night. We're going to get a little logo, and we're going to put it on the bottom that says Purdue needs Trey Kaufman-Ren on the floor. And that will absolve me of the obligation to talk about that ever again. So just goes without saying. Trey Kaufman-Ren is an All-America level player. And anytime he goes out of the game for any reason, the game kind of changes. And when it's foul-related, when it's these ticky-tack fouls that occurred at Michigan, occurred here on number 2 for him in this game, on the glass, these rebounding fouls are, I say this jokingly, but I joked around with somebody about this before. If Trey Kaufman-Ren opted out of rebounding altogether, would that be a net loss for Purdue, or would that be a net gain because all those fouls he's picked up that have affected these games would go away? That's, of course, a joke. You need all of your guys rebounding. You need your big guys rebounding. So I'm just joking to illustrate a point about how impactful these little minor fouls in rebounding have been to Purdue when they get when Trey Kaufman-Ren gets tagged with them. Again, it maybe mattered tonight, maybe didn't. It definitely mattered against Michigan. It definitely mattered at Iowa, though Purdue obviously came back and won that game pretty handily, if I recall correctly. But Purdue needs him on the floor. I think that the turnovers were the difference in the game. The points they got off of Michigan State got off Purdue's turnovers were the difference in the game. Maybe they happen, maybe they don't happen if Purdue keeps Trey Kaufman-Ren on the floor for the entirety of that first half. I have no idea. There's no way of knowing. I'm just kind of guessing. I'm just kind of talking out of left field here. But there is a correlation often between Purdue not scoring, and I know Matt Painter says he likes the shots Purdue got at Michigan at the end of the first half, and that's fine. But none of the shots went in. They didn't go in. So Purdue has had these scoreless spells at times, normally correlating with Trey Kaufman-Ren going out, and it occurred again tonight. Michigan State makes that big run. At the end of the half, Fletcher Lawyer kind of gets them back in it. When it looked like Michigan State was going to run away and hide going into the locker room, Fletcher Lawyer makes a 3, if I recall correctly. Fletcher Lawyer hits Will Berg, of all people, for a dunk in semi-transition. And that kind of stopped the bleeding to a certain extent. But then the turnovers, kept up in the second half. And, 6 of them off Braden Smith. Give Michigan State some credit for that, for really, really, putting some heat on him, but maybe he was trying to do a little too much. Maybe he was, I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch all of them tomorrow. but Purdue did not seem to have the level of poise it needed to have in an environment like this. And I need to lean back into my computer because this blows. No pun intended. Purdue has a lot of experience. They've won a lot of games like this with this group. And it just kind of came apart there for a while. The turnovers, if I recall correctly, kind of came in bunches. And again, Michigan State capitalized on all of them here. So in the second half, if I can read my horrible handwriting, I've got 2 turnovers out of their first 4 possessions, and then I've got 3 in the span of like 6 possessions, 7 possessions. Mind you, when Purdue didn't turn the ball over in this game, and if Purdue could have gotten stops against Wisconsin, they're playing at a really high level offensively. Now, turnovers are part of offense, so that matters in a game like this. But Purdue shoots 51% on the road tonight. They again shoot pretty well from 3, 9-24. They're not getting to the foul line as much as they'd probably like to. They're not getting 7 fast break points. Isn't an ideal number for them. They've been doing pretty well with that. 7's not a terrible number, but it's not a game-changing number either. Second chance opportunities, 7. Points off turnovers, 8. Those garbage points matter so much for Purdue, but even without them, Purdue is making shots. Purdue's executing at a decently high level offensively. The turnovers were the difference in the game, but there were only 12 of them. And that's, I think, the difference between the turnover total as an indictment of the offense and the turnover ramifications in terms of the impact on the game are 2 very different things. I think most situations you can probably not love it, but you can live with 12 turnovers. It just so happens Michigan State's one of those teams that makes you pay for every one of them because they're so good in transition. It's what they do. It's what they've always done. And it's what Purdue comes into every one of these games knowing that we cannot let them do this. And they weren't able to do it tonight. And that really compromised the defense that has taken a step back. It just has. It's, what Purdue did over the first half of the Big Ten season, was new to a lot of these teams that have been preparing for Purdue every year. And as you put more and more stuff on tape, the coaches in the Big Ten are good enough and the players are good enough to figure out what to do. And I think people know what to do now against Purdue better than they did back in January. And I think that's kind of showing up here a little bit. I think Wisconsin had the blueprint. I think they did it to damn near perfection. I don't know if Michigan State did it as well, but Purdue was not good enough defensively on the ball. And that's 2 straight games now. Wisconsin was the exact same way, where, Purdue needed to be into the ball better on all those flip-up dunks that they got. I'll have to go back and watch them tomorrow, but that was Matt Painter's explanation, and that's what stands to reason on those types of plays, that if a guard gets to the screen and gets to the guy making that pass and cuts off the pass, then the play doesn't happen. And that's a situation where Purdue in January was really good on the ball. The 2 freshmen were a big part of transforming Purdue in that regard. Miles Colvin was a big part of that, and it just doesn't seem to be there right now. The 2 freshmen, it's been a long season for them. Both of them obviously say they're fine physically. They haven't worn down at all, but it's just not the same as it was before. And I think you can say that about the entire defense in terms of the way they're pressuring opposing offenses. You see opponents taking more advantage of Braden Smith playing in that free safety role around the basket more than you did in January. You see people working into mismatches far more effectively than you did in January, and you see far fewer turnovers being generated by Purdue than you did back in January. That is simply opponents coming up with some answers. and executing those answers well. And what the counterpunch is for Purdue is they have to be better at it. They have to be better at pressuring the ball. They have to be better at taking away easy plays. They have to keep people out of transition. And that was job one in this game, to not turn the ball over and to keep Michigan State out of transition. And both of those things went sideways. And that's why Purdue is loser of 3 straight for the first time since 2020. Not what Purdue is used to. I think, Purdue's contention for a 3rd straight Big Ten regular season title, while not completely extinguished, is on the rocks right now. Purdue's going to need a lot of help, but Purdue's going to have to start playing better. They're going to have to really, really turn this on here down the stretch, and get some really difficult wins in order to be back in that mix here after a couple games. You very rarely come to Michigan State expecting to win, at least outside people. You very rarely see any team come here and expect them to win at Michigan State. Purdue's had a lot of success here. And this Michigan State team is vulnerable. They had lost 3 of 5. One of their wins, remember, they were down by 16 points at Illinois before Illinois completely imploded. This was a vulnerable Michigan State team, but Purdue sort of let it off the hook by being maybe a little too careless with the basketball. It just comes down to Purdue not doing the things it needed to do, not controlling the game the way it needed to control the game. And it is easier said than done. I mean, this is, Michigan State is 21-5 for a reason. They've got a ton of banners hanging up here for a reason. Tom Izzo just broke the all-time Big Ten wins record for a reason. This isn't, Eastern Michigan. This is Michigan State. Eastern Michigan hosted the worst basketball game I've ever covered in person. Anyway, so Purdue kind of takes one on the chin here. This is a tough game for Purdue, a tough stretch for Purdue, and I guess there'd be nothing more gratifying for them than to get right in Bloomington, right? I mean, that would be the golden opportunity to do it. Will not be easy. Indiana has played better. They obviously won here, which is hard. It was 2 games after the West Coast trip for Michigan State. Starting to see a pattern there, guys, in this ridiculously expanded Big Ten. Anyway, that's what I got. GoldenBlack.com. This is Brian Neubert. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, no matter how drowned out by snowblowers those materials may be. Thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support, as always. And thank you to viewer Sean for sending a message to my man Jake Query before I went on the air in Indianapolis with him today. So we appreciate you watching, Sean, but all of you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, and I will talk to you guys again whatever day it is, sometime this weekend from my perch on top of Mount Olympus in Assembly Hall. So thanks, everybody.